Hello, Cubs fans. Welcome back to another episode of Cubs on Tap. It took forever, it felt like, to go live. The countdown was counting down, and I could not push live on this StreamYard thing. Apologies, anybody watching live. If you are watching live, please go to YouTube and hit us up in the comment section because hopefully, Elon Musk is going to change this. But we can't see your comments on Twitter if you're watching on Twitter. So go to YouTube, definitely comment us there. Back again for another episode. We're coming off of a win, third win in our last 12 games.
Thank God.
Thank God. Juice is with me. It's Joey knows nothing. I literally know nothing. And at Juice on Tap, the juice is loose. Joey and Juice, how you doing, Juice?
Doing good, man. I wish I could say the Cubs were doing well. Rough kind of 2 series here, and just hurts when you get your butt whooped by those guys up north, man, in any sport, right? It seems like we've been taking a lot of L's to Milwaukee and the Wisconsin area for a while, depending if you're a Bears fan or a Bulls fan, and obviously the Cubs being in the division with the Brewers, and the Brewers kind of owning it for a while, man. But I'm excited to talk about some things that we're seeing that are good, and obviously a lot of bad as they're, kind of struggling through here. But I'm just happy to be on the mic with you, man. I know that our guy Ron Luce not on today. I don't know what he's doing. He's probably calling one of the 1,000 games he's calling over at the college over there. Probably like 4th grade volleyball or something. Some little kid group came in and he's up there calling the little volleyball game out there, man. And that's Ron Luce for you, man. He's going to be one of these days. We're going to see that man. If it's not like with On Tap, he's going to be one of those big time broadcasters like Boog. Just we're like, man, I worked with that guy one time and he's just a creature of a man. And what a guy. So yeah, we're going to try not to steer this ship into an iceberg. And pun intended, because it's been cold as hell around Chicago for May. And yeah, man, should be fun. I know we don't have a lot of good to talk about, but we got a lot of things that I know both of them are kind of like, brewing in our minds. I've seen some of your Twitter. I've tweeted a few things about the team recently, and there's a lot of news going around a team that's kind of really struggling right now.
Team that's really struggling, no doubt, and I'm glad you brought that up about Ron. The legend of Ron Luce at Luce on Tap. It's going to be legendary when this book is finally written. But I hope, like you said, I hope we don't screw this thing up too bad tonight, and it's still entertaining. I mean, it's always entertaining. I feel like especially when we're all together. But we're going to get us all together soon, hopefully. But yeah, struggling team right now, like you said, Juice. It was good to salvage something against Milwaukee. Looking at this, and I want to pull up a comment real fast here from our boy Scott Crawford. Shame on Ron. Absolutely, shame on Ron. Shame. But here's the thing: we salvaged one against Milwaukee. We only won one against Atlanta in Atlanta. Seeing a few different things here, and I mean, we could recap game by game and go through here, but and I probably will outline a few things in a second, but it just feels like Milwaukee for that series alone. I know I'm starting kind of in reverse here, but the first 2 games of that series, Wrigley North, it was not Wrigley North for the first 2 games of that series. Hendricks, a clunker. And then the second game, they had the Steele outing on Justin Steele Day. We had some terrible defense going on. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. Only put up 2 runs combined. Outscored, I believe it was 20-2 in the first 2 games of that series. Christian Yelich, he made us pay for the, yelling Yelich sucks from the bleachers at him on opening day. All the shit we gave him opening day, man. He made us pay that series along with Hunter Renfroe. Quick thoughts on the first 2 games of that series, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Cubs need to pick a lane, right? You either got to score a lot of runs and compete with these teams that are going to beat up your starting pitching, or you got to pitch better. And I think if you're a Cub fan and you're kind of looking for where the easiest route for that is, it's probably a little of both, right? They got to score more than 1 run a game if they're really thinking about making some noise. They're having some real trouble, man, and the offense too. I think if you took the 21 run game out from the Pirates, they're not looking so well. And you know what? They don't have a lot of power. They kind of go through these ruts and kind of look real easy to work through if you're a starting pitcher. But I'm gonna be honest, man. I think that what alerts me, what concerns me even more, is the starting pitching. I expect Kyle Hendricks to be so much better than this, and he's just not. And it's kind of flipped into May, and I know he's always been a slow starter, so I'm holding on to hope. Like I hope to God that we're getting the next 4 months of good Kyle Hendricks, but we haven't gotten what seems like a decent stretch from him in a long time. Because if you date back to like the last month of the season, maybe the last month and a half of last season, he was bad then too. I think he had like a 7 or 8 ERA and just didn't look, interested in pitching. And I know it's tough too when you trade, some pillars from a team that won a World Series. And he's a competitive guy. Like he's a guy that hates to lose at literally anything. If you followed the Cubs since 2015, everybody always answers about the locker room saying that Kyle Hendricks may be the most competitive one, out of any of them that is in there. So keeping him around, I thought was, a really good stepping stone for these young guys to learn. But Kyle is just not putting together competitive pitching performances. And that's when it kind of concerns me. And I start to question, I don't know about you, and I hope I don't want to go full nuclear on this and say Kyle Hendricks is done. Because if anybody is going to be able to pitch through it and have the baseball IQ and the smarts to battle, it's going to be him. But he just doesn't look like the guy who, as of right now, pending this could completely turn around, the guy who's going to age well. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the normal idea for a starting pitcher, in my opinion, is throw hard. And then as you go through your career, you age more to the guy like Kyle Hendricks, where you rely on location. Where Kyle is always going to be the location guy. And when he's not effective in hitting his spots, he's going to get hit all around the yard. And we've seen that in the first half of this, first month of this season. Mind you, it's just a few starts. I don't want to jump off the bridge yet of Kyle Hendricks, but man, it's concerning. And you're getting Justin Steele hasn't put together a good performance in what seems like a while. Even he's kind of struggled, and they just don't have the high leverage of arms at the top of this rotation, I think, to consistently play the way they've played offensively and win baseball games.
That's the truth. I mean, you're not saying anything wrong here. It's kind of concerning, or very concerning, when you look at Kyle Hendricks and you look at this rotation. And even Justin Steele lately has just not been I had higher hopes for him coming into the season, and he showed that some of that early on. And lately it's you're not getting depth from him. You're not, it's real questionable here. I mean, yeah, you can have some errors and stuff that are playing into this with his outings, but some of it was also on him, weird plays down the first baseline that he's, I mean, that's kind of those are random plays, right? Where he loses the ball trying to tag the guy going down the line. Weird plays. I agree with you on Hendricks. It's he's the type of guy that you would expect to age well, but after so long, you wonder, if teams are just catching on to him and his, maybe he's losing a little bit of that command. That's it's just not quite as sharp. And when you don't have that overpowering stuff, like we've talked about, at some point, when do the wheels fall off? And is this a sign? I mean, he did have a good outing against the Pirates the last time though. Before this last clunker, it was 7 innings, 2 hits, something like that, no runs. So I'm wondering, are we just getting this fluctuation with a guy like Hendricks? I mean, even Stroman wasn't pitching his greatest. He turned in a quality start, and maybe we can go back to the Atlanta series here now as we were working in reverse. Stroman, excuse me, he turned in a quality start, but he still gave up 3 runs in that outing, I believe. And now this last time, on his birthday, 31st birthday, the Stro show, you knew it was going to happen. Turning up for your birthday, let's go. that's just kind of what I thought it was going to happen. Like right away, put money on the Cubs money line, plus 190, whatever it was. Had to hit it. Felt great about it. Stroh went 7 innings, 2 hits. I had the line pulled up here. Let me go back to it. 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run. Or excuse me, no. Is that even? Why did I have the 1 run? No runs. Supposed to be no runs. 1 walk, 5 Ks. Cubs win 2-0. Just absolutely ridiculous. Then you had Wick holding it down. He's been incredible too out of the pen. Robertson, 5th save of the year. Only 1 hit allowed so far for Robertson and 14 Ks and 10 innings pitched. That deserves note because, if we are going to talk about some positive things, there's a few guys in the bullpen that have really been holding it down. There's like 4 or 5 of them that have been really, really legit all year. And we can get into that in a minute. But I'm just wondering, like, back to your original point about the starting pitching, like Stroman, I think we all kind of thought, yeah, he's going to turn it on at some point. Like this is going to be, he's going to turn the corner. He's going to find himself a little bit. Maybe that's the case with Kyle starting out slow. But after that, it's like, I don't know. Smiley's been pretty solid for the most part so far. He's still got an ERA under 3. When's Wade Miley coming? When's Alec Mills coming? If he's going to the rotation, does Keegan get inserted into the rotation? I don't know, man. I got a lot of questions still about this rotation. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Wade Miley and even Edward Alzolay. Like, when are we going to hear anything about him starting to, ramp up his throwing and things like that? It almost seems like a continuation of last year's case study that I kind of alluded to last season, that if the Cubs aren't going to blow people away, then it's going to be difficult for them to win baseball games, because the game right now is throw 95 or higher, throw it past the guy, because all these teams are setting up their teams for home run, walk, or strikeout. It's the 3 outcome, type of baseball, type of era that we're in. And with a guy like Kyle, it's almost like they're sitting on every single thing that he's done over the state of his career. And now it's like, oh, we just had to wait for this. You know what I mean? Yep. And it's a lot of like getting behind, and his walk rate is higher, and he's walking more people than he has before. I think he has a 4 walks per 9 right now.
It's almost like he's nibbling, like,
yeah,
he knows that he's off a little. Like,
yeah. And I think that's really concerning too, because I don't know if you remember back in, like, he was phenomenal in 2020. And going into 2021, he talked so much about needing to throw that curveball more often. And I don't know if it was the last couple of starts of 2020 where he didn't look the best, where he's like, man, maybe I need to change some things because hitters are starting to catch on. But he's never really had that curveball, that electric curveball. You know what I mean? It's more like the get over pitch, just to show it, so it has to keep the hitter honest. And it's always been the splitter and the 2-seamer and the changeup. That's just kind of always how he's, nibbled away around. And maybe within time he hits his spots, but it's just really concerning to sit here and watch him and think, the guy is going to rely on nibbling. And I think hitters now are more like, we're just going to take our walk. And when you fall behind, we know you got to come in the zone. And all your pitches are around the same, mile per hour. So, yeah, and that's the other thing too, there's really no downward movement with his changeup right now either. Remember, it used to break out of the zone and fool hitters, and now it looks very straight compared to, the way it used to look. But I think, and I don't want to play tinfoil hat, but maybe him like really trying to insert that curveball got him away from what makes him great. And that's the fact of like running the 2-seamer into right-handed hitters, running it, inside on left-handers. I just want to see Kyle Hendricks get back to Kyle Hendricks and the way he pitched in 2016, 2017, 18, 19 and 20. Just be yourself, man. because at the end of the day, like that's what's going to prolong his career. And if he's trying to play with, third and fourth pitches that, aren't going to be, difference makers in an at bat, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have hope that he'll turn it around here. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of guys that have given us 7 innings this season yet, outside of Kyle and Stroman. So, like, the hope is there that, it wasn't just a fluke against the Pirates because our offense was doing so well. They just kind of gave up, maybe, like, because there's always that too. Like, you don't know the other side of the mentality. Look, when you're chasing runs like that, I mean, some teams have the mentality of let's get one here, let's get one there, we're going to chip away. And then other teams are just like the Pirates who've been losing it year after year. It's like, hey, we're done. Like, just forget today. Like, they're a young team that's like not that good. So how much of that was him being really, really good? And it seemed like he was sharp that day. But how does he tap into that? I agree with you with that curveball thing. Like, how does he has it been messing up his other pitches, even the movement on them, like the touch, the feel for it? That's possible. That's certainly possible. We could talk all day about the negative stuff here, and I want to bring up Scott's comment here. Killian needs to be called up for a start this weekend. I don't know. Like, I just want him to be ready. I don't know. Like, I actually haven't looked and seen how he's been doing lately, and Tyler, our boy Tyler, said, "What's up, boys? Is it time, Caleb? Killian time?" I know that's Ron's boy. He's not on here. It's kind of I'm high on Killian too. I know you are, but I don't know if it's time yet. Like, I don't want to rush things. Not saying that it's not time either. Maybe it is. I don't know. What do you think, Juice?
He's such a tough prospect for me to say, yeah, he's ready, right? Because it seems like he's had this meteoric rise, and he's thrown himself in the conversation of the Brendan Davises that are knocking on the door. And like, while I truly do want him to get MLB time this year, and I think he will. I think we most certainly will see him at some time this season make a few starts. I think he may get a run at 5 to 6 maybe at the end of the year. But I think if you're looking as a Cub fan right now, there's just so many injured arms that were projected going into the season to be a part of this rotation that I feel like they're going to ride this same 5 until Adbert Alzolay and Wade Miley are back. And then they're going to reevaluate that and see where they're at. And by then, with the way the offense is right now, they may be out of this whole thing. They may be looking at the division as, this is already over. And I hate to say that because it's April and baseball can change. But let's be honest here. If you were to, put a gun to our head and ask us where the Cubs are at, the Cubs are realistically at a time where they're in between a core and an old core, right? It's a mix up of guys who are trying to, carve out their place in the MLB, if not here, somewhere else. And I think that if you're going to get a look at Caleb Killian, I think the situations need to be right as well. Like, the matchup needs to be good for him.
Mm-hmm.
The timing needs to – you can't just go to him at the first time that you're trying to, stay in the hunt for a division. Like, I feel like Caleb Killian is a guy that – man, you're like 2 games back, and the only thing that you're struggling with is starting pitching, and you don't want to go buy any because you don't want to give up prospect capital. So he's the closest we've got. Let's see what he does. No pressure, Caleb. Go out there, do what you do, and see if you can win a division. But realistically, like, the thing is the Cubs are just not – they're not there. And I think that, like, this is kind of showed – over the course of like the last couple, we were talking about it before we hopped on. What are they 3 and what in their last?
Yeah, 3
and 13.
3 in their last 12 or something.
3 of their
like
last
that.
12 or like so bad. Like if you look at it, they're playing really bad baseball.
I'll expand on that a little bit too, Juice.
Yeah,
they haven't won a series since the opening series. They've tied some. They have not won a series since the opening series.
And technically, they haven't won a series yet either, right? Because that was a 4-game set that was canceled.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so
that could have been.
That could have been. So realistically, they haven't won a series since last year. So, yeah. But with that said, I look at this team and all the guys that you needed to overproduce out the gate here, most of them aren't, right? You look at like Nick Madrigal, and he's been a disaster to start the year. And you look at, Swindell's he's been hit or miss. He's been okay, but there's a lot of different moving parts on this team that are just not kind of performing at their, like your Kyle Hendrickses, your Justin Steele that you thought would take, a leap. But realistically, like to give Caleb a start in a rebuild year, essentially, like what they wanted not to, because let's be honest, the Cubs don't want to say it, but that's what this is. This is a play with house money with a team that, we don't know if some of these guys will be in the league next year, or be everyday players next year. So realistically, I would like to see Caleb when there's no expectations, right? Like, I feel like if you bring him up now, it's almost like, hey, fix our problem, and then you're putting more pressure on him, plus the major league debut and adjusting to the hitters, and there's ups and downs with that. And I think too, like there's going to be a lot of expectation the minute he makes his first start. Why add any unwanted stress to the problem?
I agree with that. I mean, here's the thing too. Like when the guys that you mentioned, like Miley, Wade Miley, Alec Mills, Albert Alzolay, like the guys we talked about, when they're ready to come back, like what do you do then? Now it's just a logjam. And if he's pitching like okay, or maybe it's poorly, do you send him back down? Like I don't really want when I call up a guy like Caleb Killian, if it's me or my team, I want him to have a for sure spot if he's pitching well or like pitching okay enough. Or are you just gonna like not activate Miley? Like, throw him in the bullpen. He wasn't signed to be a bullpen pitcher. He's signed to be a starter. So it's like I want to be able to know that he's ready and he's going to have a spot on this rotation if he's going to come up. And yeah, like he's not here to fix up any problems. Like I would not call up Killian to fix any issues. It's just all about, is he ready? If he's ready, call him up. Like if you truly believe in his development at this stage, he's ready to get big league hitters out, which no one's to say that he can't right now, right? Like he's good enough to where he's going to get big league hitters out right now. They call him up, he will get big league hitters out. But is he going to pitch? Is he going to get beat up the second time through the order or something? Like, is he going to have those nerves? Of course he's going to have nerves. That's what happens with every pitcher when they get called up from the minors. Like, you see it all the time. Like, look at Logan Gilbert this year. That dude's a freaking stud, and he struggled out of the gates last year. Like, he struggled with control. All coming up through the minors, he didn't have control issues. Caleb Killian, kind of the same situation, has pretty good control and command, but big leagues are a different animal, man. This is the guy chasing his lifelong dream. So you better believe like he's going to have some butterflies going out there. But yeah, man, like looking at the bullpen too, because we're talking a lot about the rotation, but I want to dive into this bullpen too, because is Keegan Thompson, like, is this just his role? Like coming out in this situation, he seems so legit, man. He's not the only guy in the bullpen that I want to talk about, but him kind of doing this piggyback role, like he's solid. Like I love what Keegan's doing this year. How do you feel about Keegan?
I think he's the toughest one to kind of evaluate because we've watched him go into the starting rotation and be so, right? And I think there are guys in the league that you put him in a situation like Keegan's in now. And with how young he is, I was talking about this with Ron on the last episode. The makeup for him to do that job, I think, is more impressive than being a starter. Because Keegan has no clue what situation he'll be coming into the game, what time of the game he'll be coming in. And I think the hardest thing to do as a young pitcher is to control your emotions based on the moment. You come in with runners on, or you come in a clean inning, there's different situations that are, needing certain emotions and certain, levels of poise, I think is the best way to put it. He comes in with an open inning. It's like, hey man, like I'm going to go 3 here. I'm going to try to get, maybe 3 ground ball outs to keep my pitch count down, or hey man, I need a double play here, so I got to throw this pitch because there's runners on first and third. And we've seen that from Keegan. Like Keegan could come in and clean it up a little bit too. And I think that like
he could strike out everybody if he needs to. Too. It looks like do whatever.
And I think that like there is such a value to that in today's, MLB, especially when it's like the starters, because we could see it now. Like, and I'm not going to blame. I don't think that you're going to get the level of depth this whole year from the MLB, but it's clear that like starters are just not going as far as they did even 10 years ago. I mean, I remember, even go back to 03, like 120 pitches for Pryor and Wood was like, yeah, he's got another 10 in him. Like, can you imagine like getting a little of that today? Like, no, they don't do that anymore.
You'd be lucky if you get 90 out of guys now.
Yeah. So just to like have a guy like that where you can throw in there if you're down 7 runs and you have a day-night doubleheader tomorrow, like, and say, hey, Keegan, dude, get me to the end. Like I need you to save my pen. And he'll do that. And then he'll come back the next day and give you 1 or give you a hitter. I think that the level of flexibility that he has, I think is endless. And I also think it's endless value too. You can almost make the argument that is the most important, pitcher on the staff right now, because if he's able to do that, then you've equipped yourself with a Josh Hader. And like, imagine having that level out of your bullpen with guys that, we talked about it, are down in, the minors right now who are going to contribute. Your Braylon Marquez we've talked about him maybe being a closer down the line, considering that he's had some issues, staying healthy as a starter. Burrow Caraway, who throws like 103, if he can ever figure out how to find the strike zone. There's a lot of guys down there that like project as like the late guys, but there's not a Keegan Thompson, right, that projects like multiple innings. Because I don't think Braylon's going to be that guy if you move him to the closer role. You're going to tell him, hey, man, you're going to come in, you're going to throw 102. Like you're going to leave it all out there for 1 inning. There's just – and I think it's so hard to find guys who are comfortable in that role who also want to contribute that way and not be a starter. Like, imagine like how easy it is for Keegan just to think, man, like I do this 3 times a week and I come in for 3 innings. I pitch 9 innings at no run ball. Man, I could be getting $140 million, $200 million, $300 million being a starter if I just move to the starting rotation. But I think Keegan's kind of identified a market that Josh Hader kind of and the guy Andrew Miller kind of identified even before him, that like these 3 inning guys,
fireman role.
Yeah, these 3 inning guys that come in and shut it down, and you got no chance because when you see him on the mound that you're not scoring and you're down 2 runs, puts a panic because now you're in the 9th and you're facing 104. Good luck, squaring that up for a lot of these guys. And I think that's a great role for Keegan, and I hope that it stays that way. I hope this front office and David Ross don't start to get cute and go, I wonder, maybe he just had a bad stretch of outings last year when he got the chance, and now they're going to throw him back into the rotation and say, hey, go at it, man. And then if he struggles, then that confidence is ruined. And I think that's just as valuable. That's just as valuable as having the arsenal that he has.
That's what I wanted to know from you, Juice, because and I was kind of hinting towards that. So I'm glad you kind of answered that before I even asked it. Was like, is somebody going to say, hey, like, let's give him another shot in the bullpen? I agree with you. Like, this is a spot where he thrives. It just, you can tell, like, he has that kind of bulldog mentality when he gets out there on the mound. He's not afraid of coming in there with guys on base and, picking up the traffic and then cleaning it up, or just like going and giving you multiple innings. Like a guy like that is so valuable because we've seen him with like 1 time through the order, 1.5 times through the order. Like he can do that. And because we lack the starting pitching right now and guys are not going deep, he can clean up a Justin Steele's mess. He can clean up Mark Leiter Jr.'s mess. Like it is invaluable to a team. And there's a few other guys too with this bullpen, like Rowan Wick. He seems like his velocity's back a little bit from the last couple of years. We've seen him really, or even earlier this season. He's been legit. David Robertson, I mentioned him, like he's lights out, hasn't given up a run yet. You're lucky if you get a hit against him. Like it's just not happening right now. Scott Efros, he's looking dirty still. I know Michael Givens had a rough one in Atlanta, but he's pretty much
overall he's been pretty good.
He's been pretty good. So there's some positives down there in the bullpen if you could just kind of get to these guys. Like, yeah, because Keegan Thompson, he can't pitch every day out of the bullpen and give you 3 innings. It's just you can't do it. You're almost like it's not starter's rest, but he needs it's like halfway starter's rest, right?
Yeah,
like,
he needs an off day. He
on.
needs something sandwiched, in between there. But yeah, I wanted to ask you this question because you're a baseball savant. You watch a lot of different teams around the MLB. You don't just watch the Cubs. I know because you do the bets and you're able to talk about any player in the league with me when we go out to the bar. Do you feel like teams should build their bullpens with more guys like this?
Yes.
And almost have like an idea. Like think about like if you had 3 Keegan Thompsons that could go 3 innings and were okay doing it. Like, do you feel like down the line, like that's something that teams maybe use more investment on and then kind of move from paying big time closers to maybe paying 3 inning guys out of the bullpen that do it, like I said, maybe 2-3 times a week. They come in and they clean up 3 and they get paid prime bucks. I'm curious, like, do you think that that's like we're ahead of that game by having a guy like Keegan in our bullpen? Because eventually I think these guys are going to be way more valuable than I think the closers will.
I think we're heading that way. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I think we're heading that direction. I mean, you look at guys like even for Pittsburgh, look what Will Crow did to us out of the bullpen the other day, right? Like there's guys like that all around the league that we're seeing now. I mean, you got these openers, like Tampa Bay started it with the openers. Basically they kind of set the tone for that, because then you have like these long relievers, but they're starters, and then you have like longer relievers after them. It was like guys that can't really go the full distance. And then with the analytics being involved in such a huge part of baseball now, not that it hasn't been over the last few years, but even more so, like every year it's increasing. We're noticing the trends that happen and when pitchers get really beat up. Like if, of course, the 3rd time through the order, but even after the 1st time through the order, like you flash from that 1 time through, guy sees him once, next time he's going to have a better at bat again. It's just that those are basically just the numbers for the most part. And that's why you see even bettors, like you mentioned the gambling side of thing. A lot of people like those nerfy bets, those no run 1st innings. It's because the hitters haven't seen the pitcher yet, right? But the issue with that is, now we're talking something completely different, but the issue with that is you're facing your best hitters in the first. Like the lineups are the lineups for a reason, right? It's 1 through 4. Like they stack them up that way to kind of get your best hitters the most at bats. So I actually have an issue with the nerfy bets, but I see why people do it. That's just kind of what my point was. But I do think, like, back to your original thing about like the value of these guys, I think there will be some more money tossed at these kind of long reliever types, these specialists, these fireman type of pitchers that you're not seeing these guys come in as just like Carlos Villanueva types or whatever that are coming in like when the game's out of hand. You're seeing them come in high leverage situations, and you're seeing them kind of clean up the deal and then put zeros on the board and keep their team in the game. And guys like Keegan Thompson, guys like Will Crow so far this season, other guys that, I can't think of off the top of my head, but I certainly, if I'm looking at who it is on the team, I can tell you who they are. But it's a big thing. It's a big deal. And I think we are heading that direction in baseball. And I would love to see Keegan stick in this role for a long time. He's under team control. It's not like you have to worry about paying him now. I mean, unfortunately for him, like he might not make as big of money, but like you said, if this kind of trends this way all around baseball, second contract for Keegan Thompson, paying him what, 10 mil a year? Like that's not out. That's not insane if we're talking about it once he gets like towards the end of his deal. Or maybe you trade him. Like, you know, we don't know what the Cubs are going to be like when it comes that time, or if he's even going to be like this solid. We're like projecting way in the future here, but I do love it, man. Like I like the way that this is kind of trending. I do miss the days of 7 inning shutout ball, like complete game shutouts. Like you hear that all the time. Like I hear Pat and Ron talk about it even during the Cubs broadcast. Like you just don't see that anymore, and it's kind of sad. Like I used to like the pitchers duels. Maybe I was a weirdo that, you know, liked the pitchers going 8-9 innings and stuff like that. But it's taken a little bit away from the game. But at the same time, you're getting the best baseball for the entirety of the game because guys are on point all game. So that's what's cool about it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see too. Like I think there's only like one. I can only think of one complete game from a starting pitcher that has happened this year. That
was that Logan Webb, or I could be wrong.
Dodgers. Bueller? Did Bueller go 9 recently?
Oh, Bueller. Yeah, it was a D-backs game, I think, right?
And that's the only one off the top of my head that I can think of. I can't, and I'm sure there are more that I just miss. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like the level of, and that's why I think like eventually these 3-inning guys mean so much more. And maybe
Webb went 8 innings. I thought he went a complete. Go ahead. And it was 1 run allowed. Go ahead.
But yeah, just to think like, I think eventually the money gets moved. I really do. I think it gets moved from the closer position too. Because I think that with all these pitching prospects and teams seem to be loading up on just guys who throw hard, how easy is it to just move that guy to the 9th? No matter what, if you throw in the hundreds, 101, 102, you're going to be tough to hit no matter how good your secondary pitch is, right? Just the – so
and I think a lot of teams – To your point, not to cut you off, but –
No, you're good.
There are a lot of teams now, like their best reliever is not even really the closer. Like they're the closer by default, but then they're coming in these high leverage spots, and then they're doing like closer by committee. Like David Bednar, to me, is the best closing option for the Pirates. Like just staying with that kind of same team.
Sure.
But you see him coming in the 7th, 8th inning, and then Chris Stratton or whatever is coming in like it's just because when they need him, bang, he's in there in the 7th and 8th, and you're seeing that because he has more of a repertoire, you know?
Yeah, and I think too, like for the longest time, we've prioritized the last 3 outs of a game as so difficult to get, right? But now as we like start to see the way the game is played, it's almost like if you have a 3-inning guy that you feel comfortable in, those 3 outs don't mean as much as maybe these 9 do. And that's maybe worth paying more because you're getting through 3 innings and you could figure it out later on. 9 times out of 10 too. How many times have we watched a game and it ends up it's the 7, 8, 9 hitters, you know, up at the end? Like you're not always getting, you know, the heart of the order to end a game. If that were the case, closers would be who I pay the most to, but that's not how baseball works.
100%.
And that's why I truly hope that Keegan stays in this role. Don't get cute with it. I think that's the one thing, like, if I'm pleading to the Cubs, please, dear God, I know your starting pitching has been just atrocious, but understand that, you know, like the Bears draft, you needed to fill some holes and people may be unhappy about that. But at the end of the day, you solved a positional need. And that's, you don't have a 3-inning guy out there that you can project for the future. Now, you can make the argument that they may have 2 on this, depending on how the next couple months go. And Justin Steele was also really, really good in that role last year.
Yeah.
But I hope for his sake, with his arm and the power stuff he has from the left side, that he pans out as a starter, because I think that's more of a difficult, body type to find, a hard throwing lefty who projects as a high end rotation guy. I think that's more difficult, but who knows? There is Jordan Wicks, in the, down in the minor leagues, who's lurking too. He's another guy that I think is going to go through the system a lot quicker. So maybe by our point, we were talking about maybe having 3 of these guys. Maybe by the end of it, Justin Steele is projecting to be the lefty that can do that from that side. And
wouldn't it be crazy to have? Wouldn't it be crazy though to go almost every other night of Keegan, Steele, like those type of multi-inning relievers? Like, you're not going to need it every night, because hopefully if these guys pan out as starters like Jordan Wicks, Caleb Killian, maybe you still have Stroman on the rotation at that point when they come up, when they're all here, whatever the case is. Wouldn't it be crazy though? Because you want them to go like multiple innings if the starters are panning out or whatever, to hit 6 innings, 7 innings. Wouldn't it be crazy to have that opportunity to have a righty-lefty mix like that, depending on what the starting lineup was on the other side? Like, you're talking about, I'm with you though. I want Steele to pan out as a starter.
To build on that, imagine the flexibility in the roster. If you have 2 guys who can go 3, you're not having to carry as many bullpen guys. If that's the case, a lot of these guys are carrying, to the brim bullpens and sacrificing, a guy off the bench. And that comes back to bite you. Maybe you carry another catcher. The Cubs are talking about, if we're talking about the minor league
too, with Alfonso Rivas, like people are talking about him getting DFA'd when all this with the roster like shakedown, which we're going to touch on in a second too, with Ethan Roberts' situation and Locke St. John being demoted, I believe it was, but and then Ethan Roberts to the IL. I guess I'm just going to mention it now. Inflammation. They're saying it doesn't sound like it's too serious, but you never know. But that was another guy. Like, he's got options. Let's put him down to the minor leagues, which none of us want to see, because he's one of the only guys hitting right now, and like we want to see that guy. But to your point though, that's a roster spot right there. Like, you could go, they're going full to the brim. All these teams are going 14 pitchers basically, even with the roster cut downs or whatever. I think it's a 14 pitcher limit, I believe, right now, that you're allowed to have. That's one less. Okay, let's go 13 again. Like, that's so valuable to have that extra bench bat to pinch hit, get the right matchup late in the game, defensive replacement, get your better glove in the game, late in the game. I'm with you, Juice. That's great. That's a great point.
Yeah, I think, like, as we talked about it too, having 2 of those guys in there, I think is also a matchup problem in a lot of times too. Think if they had a lefty Keegan Thompson out there and you had a righty, right-handed starter, and now a lot of lineups try to get stacked, with all, left-handed pitching or left-handed hitting, and now you're coming out with a whole full left-handed lineup after, you got the right-hander out of the game, and now it's lefty on lefty, and you have to adjust to what's out there. That's and I always say, every sport, if you're the one adjusting, you've already lost, right? Think about basketball, think about football. If you're the team that has to do this, and this to beat them, you've already lost, because the team that's doing that better already is making you play their game. So when you look at baseball in a lot of ways, it's whoever can beat them to the punch and make you play their game. And I feel like that's, if the Cubs could have that in their bullpen, man, that's one hell of a weapon.
Yeah, I mean, you're forcing teams to basically counter the counteract.
Yeah,
like, and like the pre-counteract, because they're counteracting your lineup by bringing, like what you said, switching it up and just dumping 3 innings on you with a righty that maybe you had all righties in your lineup for the lefty. It's really remarkable. Like, it's crazy the possibilities of what you could do. And like, with that said though, Juice, I want to like kind of transition this a little bit to the hitting side of things, because we haven't really talked about that too much. Scott brought up, he was asking about, I'll pull up his comment here. He was asking if you're back on the wisdom train. And I think it's a good question. Like I wrote down his stats here, Juice, and I want to hear your thoughts. Like, if you take away his first 6 games, and sorry, by the way, Scott said is Juice back on the wisdom train with him leading or tied for the lead in home runs, in runs and doubles, and one back of Seiya for RBIs. I assume he's talking about the team lead or whatever. But with Patty Wise, take away his first 6 games played, Wisdom is slashing 327, 400, 714, 1.114 OPS, 4 bombs, 11 ribbies, like basically all of his production. Take away the first 6 games of the season, like he's one of the guys that's been actually hitting.
Yeah, I think it almost kind of makes my point too of like if Patrick Wisdom is your best hitter, your offense is probably in trouble, right? If he's the only guy out there who's putting up, good numbers, that's not good for business. We're looking at this team, and like I said in the beginning of the show, they got to pick a lane. They got to either pitch really well or start to score. And I think the guy, I'm looking dead at Nick Madrigal, like Nicky Singles, or like he's got to like hit your singles, dude. Because let's be honest here, like we knew what we got in that trade, right? Realistically, it's a hurt player who is going to slap it around and maybe be fun, right? Maybe, but we watched him on the South Side, and there's a limited amount of potential and kind of attributes that he has. And he's one of the guys that needed to overperform if the Cubs were really going to look at contending in the division. And he's just been god awful. I mean, it's to the point where there's guys that I would rather see, at the plate because they have more power. If he's going to hit 200 or below 200 last time I looked and just hit singles, you're better off having a guy who hits 200 or 190 like an Adam Dunn, who at least runs into one every, 10 at bats. And that's the problem with this kid. Like, he has to have everything go right to be, that impact player. And I think that in a lot of ways, I think we're going to see it. He'll have a stretch where he plays well, but those stretches are never longer than his failures, in my opinion. Like, he just doesn't have the range. And I feel like they're so stacked at second base to think that he is like some type of a future on this team, I think is just kind of maddening at this point, because you have guys like Triantos, you have guys like Ed Howard. I think his time runs up before, he even gets a shot, to be honest. I truly do. I think that there's just not going to be a spot for him that's not just like maybe an extra bench player, and that's what he is. But I mean,
it's hard to be a bench player though when you're like his like main attribute isn't even his glove, like it's
right,
his contact. That's the hard. He hasn't been terrible at second base. Like, I'll give him that. He hasn't been, he hasn't been.
There's been other advertised. As bad as advertised. Remember, I mean, we were talking about him, with some of our buddies over on the South Side, I'm sure. They're like, oh, yeah, good luck with that. He's terrible defensively.
He hasn't been that bad, yeah.
Can't run the bases. No, he hasn't been that bad, but
the hitting
is a problem. And he has limited power, and I think that his body type is going to limit him from ever obtaining any more. He doesn't look like the guy that could add, huge amounts of weight either. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'd be just a shell of what he likes to do at that point. And yeah, baseball's going that way where it's like hit the ball, put it in contact. And I think put it in play. But I think he may be one of those guys that kind of fail on that same kind of Cub movement towards, putting the ball in play, and contact is great, but you still got to slug. You got to hit for doubles and triples. And like, we can't just have him ducking singles out there. Although at this point, Like
Yeah,
I'd take a
that.
couple. I'd take some duck singles, but he's just with what you see in like the minor leagues. I don't see it. And Rivas, like he's got to get playing time, man. Like the kid's got to play. And I'm tired of coming on this show over and over and over again and being like, find him a spot. No, dude, he's got to play every day. Every day. He's 25 years old. He's 25 years old. Figure out what you got. What is the point of this year if you don't figure out what he is? You failed. If David Ross doesn't get to the end of the year and you don't know if Alfonso Rivas is an everyday player or just some guy that you trade for, left-handed, Sean Newcomb at that point, like type of guy, like you need to figure that out. And if he doesn't figure that out, God damn, like that's such a failure. Like there are a limited amount of guys that need to play every day to see what they are this year. He's one of them. And I've been super upset with the way that his whole, stint has been handled. He needs to play every day.
He shouldn't have been sent down to start the season.
No.
I've said this from the beginning. In my roster prediction, the article I wrote, I had Rivas on the team because there's no way you send the guy down. He hit over 300 in 18 games last season, the small sample size. This season, in half the games, he has better production, Juice. 429, 520, 619, 1.139 OPS, 1 bomb, 6 RBIs. Even better production in half the amount. It's small sample, I get it. But, like, the counting stats are there, too, that are better. Like, this guy needs to – all he does is hit. This guy needs to be in the lineup. Find a spot for him. I don't care if it's – like, if he's in the lineup, he has a better glove than Schwindel. You want Schwindel in the lineup, DH him. Mm-hmm. If you want – he could play outfield, too. Like, he's played outfield. He could play some – put him – I don't know where you put him, like left field. Probably the left. Best option – probably left field because you can't mess with Seiya. But I think the best option is probably first base and then DH Schwindel. And that's another thing, though. Like, is it too early to pull the plug on Frank the Tank here? Like, I was real high on him coming into the season, just given his track record through the minors. I thought he just never really got a shot up until last year when he had outproduced a lot of minor league players and just wasn't a highly touted prospect. But you look at, like, his barrel percentage, his underlying stuff, along with his, like, actual numbers and production, his metrics are down in the gutter, like almost non-existent for the advanced stats. And I'm not saying that's everything, but when we're talking about guys like Madrigal, who is just beating it into the ground and like, just can't figure it out hitting wise right now, Schwindel on most days, he's kind of looking the same way, except he will run into one every once in a while. And then you're like, oh, there's Frank the Tank again. I don't want to give up on him yet, but like at what point do you give up on the Tank?
Yeah, I think that's coming. I mean, really, as I said, if you get to the end of the year and you don't know what you have with players who are 28 and under, well, you failed, right? I mean, that's the case of it. And you know what I feel? I feel like there's two players who are standing in between Rivas playing every day, and it's Frank the Tank, who, hey, thanks for last year, man. That was fun. You kept my head sane, after the sell-off.
I was shotgunning beers in my backyard, man. I was having a hell of a time.
He was fun. And, hey, we'll go back and we'll talk about Frank the Tank in the same breath as we talked about Jake Fox, right? How fun was Jake Fox for, like, 30 games?
Michael Hoffpower,
Yeah. Like, we'll talk about him in the same – he'll be the, hey, remember this Cub when you're standing around – Murphy's like we were for opening day, naming Cub players that were on the roster we were laughing about. But, dude, I feel like he's standing in the way, and in a lot of ways, it's Jason Hayward because Ian Happ can play center, and Rivas can play left. So, if this
it's hard with Hayward because all the guys that have not been producing, Hayward's actually not been terrible this year. So it's like, I get what you're saying. He's not the guy I want to see out there. I want to see what we have from these guys. But Hayward is like, not saying he's been great either. he's actually been doing something. And like, that's what's like, okay, let's just DFA him because we want to see other guys? Ideally, maybe, but like, I don't know, man. Like, how do you do that? Like if he's being this leader.
I think that conversation is a very awkward one, I'm sure, considering that his own manager, won a World Series with him and was probably standing next to him when he gave that speech. And I love Jason Hayward. I think he gets a bad rap as a Cub. He's done a lot for the city. And yeah, he's never going to live up to 190 whatever he got. Never. And that's okay. You won a World Series. That money is spent and gone. It's fine. But on the flip side of it, it's a reevaluation year. Figure out a way to either, if you want to keep him in the lineup and you want to play out his contract and keep that value up and maybe try to move him, because I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to pray to God that he hits this way or plays this way for the rest of, this month and next month. And then maybe they can find a suitor who needs a fourth outfielder or somebody who wants to plug and play him at a difficult right field. But
I'm okay with eating the contract too. Like,
and I think that's going to happen, right? You're going to probably have to add a prospect with it too, to just get him out that you don't believe in, probably a lower one that maybe is a long shot. But no, just to round that whole thing out, man, like you got to try to figure out ways to, and there's only so many spots in the lineup, but there's two guys that need to play every day. Three guys that need to play every day, in my opinion, and it's Ian Happ, it's Alfonso Rivas, and it's Seiya Suzuki. Everybody else, maybe add Nico Horner in that as well, because you're kind of you're trying to bank it, but everything else is wide open to interpretation. If you think that you can fit in a guy here or here, especially with the DH now, there should be no problem that Ross isn't able to find, spot for Rivas. I think Rivas is the first one that you need to solve getting into the lineup, though. Like that's the figure it out. Make him DH. Maybe you DH Happ a couple times more and play him out and left. I know Ian Happ plays second base for a while. Maybe you're putting Ian Happ at second base a little bit to see if you could still do that. He could still do that again.
Try it. You got nothing to lose. I mean, like, here's the thing. Here's the thing with Madrigal, right? I want to see him play more just to see, like, if he can get back to even hitting above 300. Like, get back to that near 300 level, because that's what was advertised, right? He has this contact hitter, but he's been a line drive hitter, not like just somebody who hits it into the ground and hits it into the air. Maybe he just needs some time to find his footing. I want to see I think he's an everyday guy right now at this time being, just because I want him to fail out of that. Like, if he's not going to be that guy, let him fail, because you gave up, what you got in return. Cody Hoyer's on the shelf right now. He had the Tommy John. He's on the shelf, so we can't even see what he could have done this season. So the one guy that you can see what they can do this year out of that whole deal with Kimbrel, which I still think the Cubs won the trade no matter what, but I still would like to see, like, can he be that guy? Because, like, right now, Horner is proving that he can be that quality player at, it's a different position, playing shortstop, not second. But, like, I was looking at his numbers, 279, hasn't committed an error at shortstop, tied for 8th in outs above average. I mean, his barrel rate's up from last year. He's not taking walks still, but he's still not striking out much. Kind of the same sort of thing with Madrigal. He's not striking out. He's striking out a little bit more, though, than like what he showed with the Southsiders. But I don't know, man. I just want to see, like, prove to me that you can or that you can't, because he's one of the guys that, you don't have to invest in him later, like past this season or past next season. But because, like you said, the prospects pool that we have in the minor league system that the Cubs have is flooded with infielders. So I'm not even worried if he doesn't pan out. It's just more of like, like you said, what are our expectations for the rest of the season? And for me, like, they're kind of living up to them, but like maybe, they'll win some more games. I'm not like what's amazing in this whole thing. We brought up Ian Happ, a guy that definitely needs to be in the lineup every day, like you said. I mean, outside of Seiya Suzuki, he's been the best hitter on the team. Like over 300, 151 WRC plus against lefties, juice 364.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what did he do with the MVP Happ again? Like, this is crazy.
And congrats to him too. I saw on social media he got engaged today.
Oh, congrats!
On his off day. Yeah, good for him. Yeah, he's been incredible, and I think if you're gonna stake time to watch the Chicago Cubs, and by staking time I mean watching the major league team, not the minors that seem to be more exciting at times this year. Ian Happ is like must-see TV. I mean, he's been incredible. I mean, he's on pace to he may be an all-star this year. That's the Cubs may be looking at him, and that may be their only all-star because what we've seen out of Seiya Suzuki for the last 13 at bats hasn't been. I think that we're kind of he's due for an adjustment, and I think that he's going to struggle a little bit for this next couple series. But I think he'll turn it around. I think once he figures out what they're doing, he's a smart hitter. It's here nor there. But yeah, I think if you're watching Cubs television and watching Cubs games, Ian Happ is somebody you got to sit down for every at bat. I think it's so refreshing too to see him have the success that he's having, because I think that he solves a major point for them. The fact that he can play so many positions in the outfield, I think, is a value to them, and the fact that he does switch hit. I mean, there's so few guys that are switch hitting in today's MLB. To have the level of production he's having from the right side is something that I don't think enough people are talking about. I don't know what he did, and I don't wish that we had access to figure out like what he did over the winter to make himself better. But it's clear that his right-handed swing is nothing like it was for the last 3 years. So, I mean, realistically looking at it, man, it's like I want to figure out what he did, because I think that he's put in the work and he solves a big problem for them. It's been fantastic. And I agree with you, man. I think that Ian Happ he's been the saving grace to the team in the first month here. Imagine where they're at without him hitting. They're in the cellar, right? Without him and Seiya Suzuki, Patrick Wisdom for this stretch, I'll throw it on there because I know our boy Scott's probably like, man, Juice got to admit that
he's been doing something.
He's having it. He is, and I'll get excited for when he's playing somewhere else. But that's here nor there. But just to kind of round it out, without those guys, man, the offense is just it's awful. It's awful now with them in it. So they got to figure something out. I think they will. But Ian Happ has just been a godsend to them.
He definitely worked on that right-handed swing. Like you said, he put in some work, and he took some, like, he must have taken a lot of hacks in the offseason. Because I was one of the guys, Juice. I was one of the guys that was saying, look, just stop. Just
I remember
give it
that.
up.
We sat on the same show. We're like, stop. Be left-handed.
Yeah. I was saying that, like, before he went on that hot streak and after he went on that hot streak, because most of production still came from the left side. Last season, from what I remember, like during that hot stretch of like ending the season out really well. And like I was like comparing him to Cedric Mullins, like, hey, he stopped switch hitting. I was like, it's possible that you don't need to switch hit, like just like go ahead and hit lefty. If you have to sit down sometimes when there's a good lefty on the mound, just sit down, like take your day off, you know what I mean? But hey, if he's an everyday player when he's like this, an everyday player, and he's one of the best players in baseball, living up to his like draft stock, really, like his prospect pedigree. If he's going to do this, he's going to live up to it, and he's not a guy that you can get rid of at this point. With that said, though, Juice, we have talked a lot about the hitting. We've talked a lot about the pitching. We've talked a lot about everything, really. We got to kind of look ahead here.
Sure.
And unless you have any like final, like not final thoughts, but like any like wrap up thoughts, I guess, on like what's taking place, what the like for this team, like what do you want to see, I guess.
I guess the only thing that I want to see is better baseball played. Throw these last two series, in the trash, and let's go win a series. That's the thing too, man. Like we're gonna look ahead, and the White Sox are struggling too. It's like go win a series against a struggling team, and that's. But yeah, just play better. And pitch better, hit better, because the way that they're playing right now it's uninspiring.
Swing the stick, hit the ball. Like
it's not hard.
Simple as that. Throw the ball, hit the mitt.
Stacey King, simple game.
Simple game. Simple game. So like you said, you got the Sox on tap, and the Sox on tap guys, I'm sure, have been talking about it. I know they went live earlier after a winner today with Dylan Cease pitching a gem, which, that one still stings a little bit that he's not on the north side. But, there's another guy that can't seem to stay healthy that was involved in that deal, in Eloy Jimenez. So not saying it's a win for us. It was definitely a lost trade, but Dylan Cease is looking like a Cy Young contender. I'm glad we don't have to face him in this series, this Crosstown Classic that starts tomorrow at Wrigley Field. As good as the Sox lineup was supposed to be coming in the series, we're still going to see two stud pitchers in this series. Kopech game 1, game 2, we got Giolito. Both guys, I know Giolito was dealing with an injury earlier this year. Kopech, he looks like he's coming into his prospect form, and he's healthy, obviously, and he looks legit. As good as the White Sox lineup was supposed to be coming into the season, like coming into Monday, they had an 85 WRC plus, 5th worst in the majors coming into Monday, dead last in walk rate, tied for dead last with the Reds in on-base percentage. Like this lineup, forget all the pitching concerns that everyone has with like Lance Lynn being hurt and all that. Like the lineup itself has gotten off to a slow start, and they've also had, they won obviously today as we're recording this on Monday against the Angels, but they got the same record as the Cubs, and they're 3rd place in the AL Central. So, like, it's surprising, Juice. Like, what do you make of this upcoming series? And I don't know, what do you make of the Sox team that we're going to face?
Well, let me preface it with saying that I absolutely hate interleague play. We talked about this a little bit, on our pre-show. It's just something that I've never been a fan of, and I think that it's something that needs to be brought out as a gimmick every other year or every 3 years, because I don't think that these games carry any weight. I don't. I've always been a component of like I don't hate the White Sox as a fan. I actually enjoy watching good baseball. And I'm really sad that like they're not playing well, because there was a hope that I would watch a lot of Cubs growth and then watch some decent baseball on the South Side. And to just have this, product for both sides, over the course of, this first month, it's just been kind of like baseball in Chicago has been kind of snake bitten, right? Just kind of like the weather, real cold, real, uninspiring. But just to, talk about the series, I think this comes down to like the Cubs pitching, getting Sox hitters out of the zone. You talked about how they don't walk. They have one of the lowest or the highest swing rates too in the MLB. Like they swing at everything, and they don't take their walks. And so maybe this is an opportunity for, guys in that starting rotation to go deeper in a ball game, because maybe you throw that pitcher's pitch up there, right, and get a ground ball, and you got a guy within a pitch or two out. Maybe you're able to go a little deeper into the game. They're a shell of what they have kind of planned to be. With Mancada being out and Eloy obviously, on the shelf, and them kind of filling in, with guys like Harrison who were hurt for a long time. And realistically, if you watch them, they've been kind of carried by guys like Andrew Vaughn and Jake Berger. Maybe not the guys that were, the mainstays of this lineup, but maybe we're just like I like to call like the sprinkles on top of the sundae. You had the base of it, you had the ice cream, and you had, the whipped cream and nuts that, kind of formed, and that was Eloy and Abreu and, the middle of their lineup. But like guys like Andrew Vaughn and Berger have kind of, replaced, the main ingredients and filled in great. So I think that like they're a team that is just begging to play, and this is what I worry about for this series. This means so much more to like that fan base, I feel like, than it does to us. So I feel like when the Sox go out and play, and even the players, I think they feel it a little bit, that little brother mentality that the South Side kind of has.
True.
So when I watch like them play the Cubs, I feel like they bring way more intensity to this series than the Cubs ever do. And that's not like the Cubs should bring that intensity. I hope that they do. Play the underdog in this series because they're a World Series aspiration team and we are not. Like, that's just the fact of where these two teams are at. So come with the same energy. But I feel like this series is just – it's like the White Sox are probably so happy to have this series right now. Right? You get you get no Ohtani today. You win a ball game, and then you go in and you get to play – your crosstown rival in parentheses for me. But I think that this is one of those like, and I know they joke about it on the South Side, the Sox on Tap guys, like set the tone. Like this is like their perfect set the tone series, I feel like they could totally come out and score like 12, 13 runs each game, pitch well, and then get themselves back to normal. I hope that doesn't happen. I'd like to see the Cubs win a series, no matter who it's against. But with that said, I just feel like this series set up so nicely for them. As much as we hate it during the week, and it's going to be like, get home television and watch it, and we'll be, tired from a work day or tired from all the other bullshit throughout the day. It'll still be appointment television because it is in some ways fun to sit and watch the fan interactions back and forth on Twitter and watch people lose their minds over a game they can't control. It is fun to watch the back and forth, but I just like watching Cubs baseball. So, I mean, I watch no matter if they're playing the Seattle Mariners. But with that said, I think it's a series that is just primed for them to kind of break out and take control. And I fear that the Cubs may be in for another bad 3 games here where we're taking L's here in the series and probably, from our friends in the group chats and on social media platforms.
So you're counting that as 3 because we're only playing them 2 games, Juice. So you're counting 3.
My mistake on that. See, and that's another stupid thing. Why is there a 2-game set in the middle of the week?
Yeah, just dumb. And then we got to play the Dodgers after that. So it's like we got a couple.
There you go. So there's my third loss. I was already kind of
that's what I was wondering too. Maybe you're counting that. And they love left-handed pitching, man. We're gonna send Drew Smiley to the bump. First game off the series. They like left-handed pitching. Like that's their get right spot. That's their set the tone against left-handed pitching. And I agree with you, man. Like now that Tony La Russa is figuring out, it seems like you need to play Andrew Vaughn just about every day and not bat Luis Garcia in the 3-hole. Like the old man yells at cloud when fans get mad at him about the lineup or what. I don't even know if he actually got mad about fans getting mad about it, but I'm just saying, like, Hall of Fame managers make mistakes. He was a Cardinals manager.
He's such a turd. I absolutely hate Tony La Russa more than I
hate him more than the White Sox. I hate Tony La Russa more than the White Sox. I don't care. I'm the same way that you are. When it comes to the White Sox, I don't look at this like a rivalry until like we play each other. Then like I guess you bring that friendly rivalry in, right? Like I'm excited about this series just for that reason alone. Your friends talking to each other, talking shit to each other. They're not rivals to us. Like I want to kick the Cardinals' ass every time. I want them to lose every single game. I don't care if the White Sox win or lose. I want them to win most nights because I'm probably betting on them. Like for just being honest, like I look at this lineup, I'm like, this team's better. Like you give me good odds, I'm gonna bet on them. But I don't know, man. It's just this. It's not a real rivalry. I do disagree with you a little bit about the interleague play though, because I'm kind of a fan of it. Like I like facing different teams and different lineups, and maybe that's more like the casual coming out in me, I guess. Like for a little bit, like the homer, like. I like seeing Mike Trout against the Cubs at Wrigley. I like, stuff like that. I find cool, but it is a little bit like this stuff is just weird. The 2-game series, and then you got 2 over there. Like there's some real wonkiness to it that makes it just. Why not just do the 3-3 or just do 3-game series at Wrigley and then next year 3 at the whatever they call Sox Park now, like the G spot, the whatever guaranteed low rate field. Like, I don't know, man. It's very weird. I hope we're not going to face just 2 L's straight to the dome like Lil Wayne.
I think we might.
But I think we might too. With that said, man. And by the way, just to throw like a quick little jab right here, guess who's leading the majors in errors?
When you have 4 in a game, because didn't Tim Anderson have 4 in Cleveland?
Did he?
Yeah, in an inning.
I don't know how many he had in a game. Well, I know he had a lot though in that one game.
Maybe 3. No, the Sox had 4 in the inning. I know he had 3 in that game though, at least. But yeah, I think it's Tim Anderson, right? Yeah, he's leading the. Yeah.
And the Sox are tied, I believe. Well, this is like coming into Monday, anyways. I don't know what's changed now, but the Sox were tied for the MLB lead with 21 errors. So, and Anderson, obviously, leading.
I keep saying, man, like, there's this is twofold for the Sox listeners if they're listening to this at all. When they hired Tony La Russa, it was like putting hot Jardinere on a Sunday. Like, they had all the fun.
Doesn't
right?
sound good.
Like I loved Tim Anderson. I thought he was fun, the change the game attitude. Like that whole team had like the, that Southside grit to it as well. Like, Kopech had that like coming out of the bullpen, glare on his face. I'm throwing 100 and you're not touching it. And then they brought like in this old like hag of a manager who like is just so past any of his Hall of Fame aspirations. Like, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, but that's not Tony La Russa, Hall of Fame manager anymore. Like that's like old senile, tired of taking questions. I don't know why they gave him the job. Like that's and they do things so weird over there. Like to me, it made so much sense for them to go and get like
it's Reinsdorf
to get an analytical manager though. Like it didn't make sense. Like the manager for Detroit, what's his name? I'm blanking on.
Oh, Hinch?
He managed that. Yeah, like he was available at that time. Like why was that not the move?
Yeah, I know. There was a few of my buddies that really, really wanted Hinch. And you're right. Like, La Russa's not that analytical guy. Like, I mean, when you can give Lurie Garcia as many at-bats as he possibly can, you just can't not do it. You have to do it. Like, I don't know, man. It's not my team. I don't really care.
And I don't know. I think that they've played their worst baseball of the year. I really do.
I think they're going to turn around, too. I really do.
I think that they're going to play really well in May. And when they're going to get healthy in June. And then when they get healthy in June, there won't be one team in that division that stops them from winning that division. And as we talked about it on this, you don't got to win 120 games to win a World Series. That's not like that's not like a requirement to win the World Series. You have to win 120. Like you just get in, So yeah, I truly think they played their worst baseball of the year so far, and I know our Sox friends are probably hitting the panic button, but they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. It's a flawed team. I don't think that they're the best in the AL or in Major League Baseball in general, but they're a damn good team that could beat any team in the league. They are. They're maybe not the best, but they got some pieces on there. When they get healthy, it's a tough lineup to face. It really is when they're all there.
No question about it, man. This team's gonna be this team is gonna be fine. I truly believe they're probably gonna make the playoffs too. If not, they're gonna be right in the runnings there with the Twins, because I think the Twins are a little bit better than people projected, even after the Correa move, because the pitching looks better than maybe people thought. But I do think that, and I like Joe Ryan, I always did, but I thought he was gonna have a good year, and he has so far. But I think that this team's going to be fine. They probably played their worst baseball this season. I don't see them making like this many errors. You're not going to have Anderson with all these errors in an inning or whatever. But same goes for the Cubs, right? Like to bring this back to the Cubs, maybe not their worst baseball of the season, but they have had they've had a tough stretch here, and I think that they're going to play a little bit better. Not in this series, I don't see that really, but I don't know. All we can do is hope for the best. What do you think for this series, though, Juice? Like, we need a fly the W pick. Who is your fly the W for this series?
The only one you can really put any hope in is Ian Happ right now, right? He's the only one that seems consistent. I'll take Ian Happ. He seems to be the type of guy that gets up for games like this.
I like it. That was actually where I was going to go with mine. So I'm going to redirect.
Double up.
I'm gonna change directions here. I'm gonna go with a guy that we kind of shit on all podcast. Let's go like straight narrative street, taking it right down narrative street. Just shove it right down their freaking throat against your former team. Hyped up. You talk about somebody who would be hyped up for the series?
That's true.
Probably Nick Madrigal. Let's get some base hits, dude. Let's get some freaking doubles. Like, let's get some gappers. I don't want to see little dribblers. I don't want to see these ground outs. Just stop. Like, hit your line drives. I'll take singles. Madrigal, maybe an RBI single. Just get on base. Let's go with Madrigal. If he hits a bomb in this series, the world is going to explode. So
I'll be playing the lotto if that's the case.
Yeah, we might need to. Juice, any final thoughts? Though we touched on a whole bunch on this. We've been sitting here for over an hour and 20 minutes.
I love it. It was all good baseball.
I love it too. I love it. We had a lot to talk about. You know what I mean? We had not a lot that was good to talk about, but there are some positive things to look forward to. I do like what I've seen from guys like Horner. We want to see Rivas play every day. Wisdom's been solid. Happ's been great. Seiya Suzuki, a little bit of a lull, but he's been. I mean, he just won NL Rookie of the Month, in his first month in the major league. So that's impressive. Hats off to Seiya Suzuki. And yeah, man, I don't know. Any last kind of thoughts here as we wrap this thing up and get ready for the Sox?
Yeah, hopefully the Cubs play a better series, play a better week of baseball than they did last week. But I'm actually going to pivot to something that's not Cubs related, just something that's going on in the world of sports, and that's Chicago Bears legend Steve Mongo McMichael really struggling, can no longer swallow food, and kind of really struggling. It seems like he's really battling hard. He's still sticking with it, but prayers up to him because he's somebody that when you think of the Chicago Bears, like that's a name and a face that comes right, when you think about that logo. And I feel so bad for him. I think that's it's a tough disease that he lives with, and he's fighting it. He's trying his best to keep going, but that's it's a tough break for him in his fight back. And I'm just gonna say prayers to Mongo. That's my last final thoughts for tonight's show, and hopefully a recovery. It'd be nice. A turnaround would be nice to see, but. Yeah, poor guy. It's a type of guy that, when you think about the Bears, like I said, you think about him, and he's done so much for the city too. And prayers to Mongo.
No doubt. I'm glad you brought that up. That is huge. It's too bad what he's dealing with right now. I definitely prayers up to Mongo. Like, one of my all-time favorite moments is watching him from the Wrigley doing the 7th inning stretch. Now that we're on this Cubs show, talking about him, because I do the Bears on Tap too with Beat on Quentin and Ron. If you guys want to check that out, obviously. But Mongo, man, just him, that's one of my all-time favorite moments. It's too bad to see him go through this, but him in the 7th inning stretch when he was yelling at Angel Hernandez, who was still making a fool out of himself as an umpire to this day. So it's like every time I see a horrible call from Angel Hernandez, I immediately think back to the time that Mongo was just like, I'll deal with that umpire later or whatever, and blew him a kiss. Just incredible stuff.
Just horrible to, and just to think too, when he was diagnosed, they raised over 200 grand for him because he didn't have, money to go through a lot of the treatment. And I hope that, he can keep continuing to beat it, and we can, set up another donation for him. I don't know if that's the case in the future, but poor guy, he's a Bears great. And, that's just, ALS is a shitty disease. It's horrible. And, I just read more of it. Can't move his fingers, can't move his legs, can't swallow food. So, not good.
That's not good. That is not good. Mongo, we're praying for you. We hope that you can kind of get back to, I don't know, fight this thing off. It's a terrible, terrible disease. We're thinking about you. With that said, though, Juice, we got to kind of get out of here. I hate to end it on like a sour note like that, but
but you had to.
Be talked about.
It's news that any Chicagoan needs to know as of right now to keep him in your prayers. Somber note, but man, it's all right. Yeah. Well, prayers to him.
Prayers to you, Mongo. Guys, with that said, we are going to wrap this up. Check out all the content at ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports needs. We have Cubs stuff, obviously, Cubs on tap. We have Sox stuff you can check out some content before we play the Sox, before the Cubs take on the Sox tomorrow. As you're listening to this, it'll be tonight. If you're checking out in podcast form, Bulls on tap, Bears on tap. We just recapped the draft. We've got beer reviews and stuff all on the website. Yeah, definitely check that out. Check out Juice at Juice on Tap. Check out the other panelists. We've got at Joe on Tap, Joe Maris, and our buddy who could not be here today, but Ron, we missed you, at Loose on Tap. And you can check out me at Joey Knows Nothing. And, of course, check out at Cubbies on Tap. And that'll wrap us up. Juice, what do we do? What do we say? We get out of here and what do you say?
Let's go Cubs.
Let's go Cubs.